Welcome to our presentation. It's entitled In-Store RDs and Nutrition Navigation, Opportunities for Effective Partnership. We're very pleased you're joining us today, and we're excited to be here. My name is Kitty Broihier. I am a dietitian in Maine and a member of the Guiding Stars Scientific Advisory Panel. And I am joined by Allison Stowell, my colleague, who I typically do webinars with a lot. She is a Hannaford dietitian and also our Guiding Stars dietitian extraordinaire, and Julie Greene, who is the director of the Guiding Stars program. We have a packed program today, a packed presentation, so I'm not going to belabor any more chit-chat, except to say that if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. And Allie and I will check in on those, and we will be handling all questions at the end of the webinar. The first part of the webinar will be me and Allie, and then the second part will be Julie, and the third part will be the questions. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and dig in, Allie.
All right, sounds good. So, for the purposes of today's talk, we are going to be defining, we're going to be using the word healthy a lot, and we just want you to know right off the bat, since there's a lot of conversation about health and healthy, that we're going to be using that term more just like broadly in the sense of, nutrition and healthy diet, not so much a definition of health. But what we wanted to do is just talk about sort of the ways we've moved towards supporting health. And as retail RDs, you guys are intimately aware of the many ways that consumers can be encouraged to choose more healthful foods. And after all, your work is one of the primary ways that that's accomplished. So if you'll just bear with me for a quick moment, Kit and I always like to begin our presentations by kind of going backward before we go forward and really kind of look at the history of what brings us to like the moment we are today, and sort of like the historical highlights that are going to frame today's conversation and the path towards supporting consumer wellness. Today's markets are vibrant and proactive places where consumers are increasingly given access to RDs like yourselves, and there's plenty of product choice, but of course it wasn't always that way. I mean, back in the very early days of the general store, you sort of didn't even get to choose what you were getting, right? Like you handed off a list and things were basically chosen for you. There was no like information really about nutritional content. That was pretty rare, and most of the stuff was non-perishable, since people could garden or obtain, produce and things from someone nearby. And the beginnings of the supermarket, kind of as we consider it today, really started in the 1930s. And the possibility of choice was brand new to consumers. And then up until the 1960s, there was very little nutrition information available on food products at all. And then the introduction of more processed foods and the desire of consumers for quickly prepared convenience items, that kind of prompted the call for more nutrition on packaging. But even into the 70s, nutrition labeling were still voluntary. And unless nutrients were added or a nutrition claim was made on a package or in advertising, there wasn't really any information. And that's when the standard of like adding the percent RDA came into being. So there was calls for revision to nutrition labeling were increasing, and health claims on packaging were proliferating, and consumers were becoming more interested in the connection between the foods they buy and their health. And this was all kind of prompted in part by the Surgeon General's report on nutrition and health that came in 1989. So it wasn't until finally in 1990 that the FDA published proposed rules for nutrition labeling on almost all packaged foods and standardized a new nutrition facts label, and really put into place the regulations on various types of health claims, which all became final in 94. And then there was revisions in 2016, and then additional changes were finalized in 2020. And so that's kind of the history. And then since the early 2000s, there's been a distinct increase in academic interest in improving consumer food choices, and with any luck, thereby, improving consumer health. Choice architecture, which I'd like to spend a bit of time on this slide now and then into the next, is one of the primary areas of study on this topic. And choice architecture is a behavioral economics term that refers to the context in which people make choices. So the use of it in stores is not a new thing, but it's certainly a stepping stone on the path toward today's nutrition navigation systems. Retailers of all types have long been aware of the impact that manipulating the shopping experience can have on sales and the use of architecture to influence shoppers. But, but looking at it in the supermarket specifically, you can see how it can influence purchases. So providing information, of course, trying to activate a particular choice through information is an aspect that's very meaningful to all of us on this call today. And then you could consider changes to the physical environment of a store, like the lighting or the decor, maybe putting healthier items in prominent positions and moving less healthy items to the less prominent positions. I'm looking at you, point of sale at the register. That's been shown to influence, purchase and lead to more healthy purchases in the store. Changes in the default choice. So an example of that would be using like pre-weighted salad portions versus a salad bar. Or I was thinking also what we're seeing more in the deli department now with more pre-cut meats and portion salads. That would be an example of that as well. And then the use of social norms and comparison. This is an interesting one because it applies to both the in-store experience as well as, of course, online, since today's consumer environment where reviews and social media shares and all of that are so impactful. So ultimately, product placement and traffic flow, music, pricing, promotions, these all have an influence on purchases. And even the size of the cart can make a difference in how much a consumer purchases. Despite all this, overall, choice architecture interventions in supermarkets, they show small effects, but they're like the effects shown by it in food choices in other settings where people are, making choices around their eating. And that given that most of us are picking up our food in stores, even small influences like this do have a big effect because, over time, that's where everyone's getting their groceries for the most part through some sort of retailer, whether that's online or in person. So.
Okay, thanks for the backgrounder, Allie. So let's move on. So nudge theory is an aspect of prompting, basically. And nudge theory was defined by Thaler and Sunstein in their best-selling book as any aspect of choice architecture that alters people's behavior in a predictable way without forbidding any options or significantly changing economic incentives. So putting fruit at eye level would be a nudge, but banning brownies is not a nudge. And by this definition, healthy eating nudges could be a variety of simple, inexpensive things that modify choice environment. And some ways might include making healthy options more visible, more convenient, altering portion sizes, even providing descriptive information about the foods. So does nudging work for encouraging healthy eating? Well, studies show it certainly has some promise when used this way. And others indicate that there's bigger effects to be seen in decreasing unhealthy eating rather than promoting healthy eating. According to a meta-analysis in 2020, effect sizes of certain healthy eating nudges are actually larger in the US than they are in other countries. However, not all nudging research is really that applicable to the retail environment. So nudging seems to be somewhat helpful in getting consumers to choose different products, but then what is prompting? Prompting can be thought of as a type of nudging, and prompting specifically is the use of information to help the customer make healthier choices at point of purchase. Even just posting the nutrition facts label could be considered a type of prompting. But in this presentation, we're focusing on evaluative systems, not just a presentation of numbers like on the nutrition facts label. We're looking at those systems that evaluate products in some manner, summarize the data, and then provide a simple logo or symbol for consumers to use to judge and choose products in store. And the main benefit of evaluative prompting approaches are that they help remove obstacles in the selection process. By making it, you don't have to read tedious labels, you don't have to spend so much time in the aisles comparing products. Therefore, it makes it easier for the consumer to choose a healthier option. Now, prompting alone does seem to have an overall significant effect on behavior, purchasing behavior, and it seems to be most useful for comparing products that are similar. And this is exactly the place where the Guiding Star system shines. But prompting combined with pricing or price breaks, well, that's the winning combo. It seems to impact customer purchases of healthy foods the most. when compared to things like proximity placement, in-store promotion, or combination of these other tactics. So now we're going to move on to the next section, which is today's nutrition navigation programs.
Yeah, I think those nudge theories offer a really great foundation into this next piece. And we wanted to take a moment now to look at the characteristics of today's nutrition navigation programs. So essentially, in terms of the types, there's a variety of approaches to programs in the US, with all of them seeking to inform customers as they navigate their way through the supermarket, particularly among dense categories that can create consumer confusion. We're going to be discussing a bit later how these programs are also making their way from shelf tags to websites and supermarket e-commerce platforms. But for now, considering the in-store experience, nutrition guidance programs are communicated to consumers through a variety of methods, from tags noting if a product is high or low in something, or sometimes using a color or a symbol or a call out to inform consumers. And then the goals. Of course, the goals of all these programs is to help consumers improve their overall diet and work toward better wellness by helping them shift through product choices for the most nutrient-dense options. They help consumers meet recommended guidance such as lowering their sodium or sugar, improving their fat intake, while seeking more fiber, other micronutrients of concerns. And in some cases, the guidance is focused on calling out whether a product is vegan or gluten-free or possesses other dietary characteristics that are important to consumers. And then in terms of the basis of information, in most cases, a nutrition guidance program is relying on data provided on the nutrition facts panel to analyze the product and determine how a product ranks or rates using a particular guidance program. In some cases, a program relies on the USDA or FDA guidelines to determine if a correct call out for a product is made. Effective nutrition guidance programs are transparent about their process and the breadth of information and how they're evaluating their products and the math or science behind their program, and maybe even has some research or data to show the effectiveness of it. And so in addition to transparency, for a program to be effective, it really needs to be based on sound science and rely on cutoff points rather than just simply letting a customer know that a food is a quote good choice for them or maybe one over another. We're going to dive deeper into the role of retail RDs in this communication, but broadly speaking, in order for a nutrition program to truly shift consumer behavior and improve wellness, it needs to be aligned with recommendations and cutoff points that improve consumers' diets, i.e., like, in other words, maybe an appropriate cutoff point for sodium or saturated fat, for example. So looking at the impacts of a nutrition navigation system on the retail environment, when a supermarket invests in a nutrition navigation program, they're committing to helping their consumers make healthier choices and create a healthier eating pattern. Nutrition navigation programs, they can cut through the noise in a retail environment and create kind of like a health-first communication tool for healthy living in retail stores. And then once integrated, a nutrition navigation tool can be used throughout store communications, whether it's the weekly flyer, in-store and digital magazines and more. And when a nutrition navigation system is being highlighted and brought into focus, so are the foods rated by that system. So you can see how that clearly can lead toward better, more healthy purchases. So retail stores that have loyalty programs like digital coupons and the like can also use these consumer tools as an opportunity to highlight their nutrition navigation program, again, likely leading to consumers changing their the total wellness, improving their wellness and changing the nutrition content of their cart. The bottom line is that when a retailer is invested in and engaged in using a nutrition navigation program to its full potential, it encourages that retailer to maintain a focus on health and nutrition, which of course is so meaningful to all of us.
Okay, thanks for the lead in there. So let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of guiding stars. Some of you are familiar with it. I will just briefly go over some of the basic points. So one of the most distinguishing factors is that Guiding Stars is a science-based program. It was launched in 2006, and it generally reflects scientific consensus from a variety of sources, including things like the dietary guidelines, as well as recommendations from the World Health or US Department of Ag or National Academy of Sciences. So Guiding Stars utilizes 5 separate algorithms to evaluate different categories of foods, and those include general foods, meat, poultry and seafood, dairy and nuts, fat and oils, beverages, our newest one, and infant and toddler foods. And these categories are all evaluated with distinct criteria to account for their inherent differences in nutritional composition and also the role that the foods play in the diet. And these algorithms are really designed to be rigorous and look at the nutrient density of the foods within a category. In other words, you're not going to find stars on everything. In fact, you'll probably only find about stars on about 1/3 of the products in your typical store. So it's quite discriminating. Our scientific advisors use the latest nutrition science, and they review the algorithms regularly and taking into account any new findings, any new guidelines, and any new consensus documents from the bodies that I mentioned before. So basically, the other thing that I really like about it is instead of telling people what to avoid or casting foods in a negative light, the icons that we have, the good, better, and best choices, keep things in a really positive mode for the customer. And more about guiding stars in specific will be handled at the end of our program by Julie. So I'm just going to continue on now. So the next topic, how nutrition navigation program can positively impact consumer behavior. So of course, the reason for having a nutrition navigation program is to positively impact behavior and guides consumers to choosing healthier foods in their cart with the gentle nudges and guidance that we've already talked about. But the question is, how well does that actually work? There is research showing that shifts towards more healthful product selection do happen with these kinds of programs. But it's important to realize that it's just part of the product purchasing puzzle. We're not saying that a nutrition navigation system is going to, make everybody's cart suddenly bountiful and filled with only healthful products. Nevertheless, Guiding Stars has been around for many years, so we do have a significant amount of research that has been done to examine its impact and effectiveness, including a 2017 independent study looking at the impact with consumers that found there were significant shopping shifts that translated into foods that were being purchased having less trans fat and sugar and more fiber and omega-3s. And that study also found in the stores using Guiding Stars that total revenues among those stores increased just over 4% versus control stores that weren't using it. Additional research has noted the quote that you have here, and that was from research done at Cornell that it looked at how Guiding Stars impacted consumer food purchases, showing it led to a more nutritious mix of products selected. Another study found that combined with incentive programs, that nutrition navigation programs lead to an increase in spending on nutritious items, even among those who already have healthful, high-quality diets, which I think is a really significant point to remember. We're not just trying to take somebody's lower quality cart and make it better. We're trying to help everyone shift towards healthier choices. And even people who have high quality diets usually can make some improvements. So together, shifts like these can help consumers eat more in alignment with the health recommendations for Americans and Canadians. And you can find all these references and more at the guidingstars.com website.
So another small shift here. We wanted to talk about how Guiding Stars supports RD's efforts in and out of the store. And obviously this piece is a part that is near and dear to me. I've worked in a retail environment now for almost 15 years, this June, long time, that partners with the Guiding Stars program. And it certainly doesn't replace a retail dietitian, of course, just, having a nutrition navigation program in store, but it makes our job a whole lot easier. And I always think of it as providing kind of a backdrop for retail RDs that enables us to help consumers find healthy foods in, when we are doing a tour or we're leading a class in store or online nowadays. And then, of course, even in our absence, it's there to kind of be a bit of a communication tool, even when we can't be there. But it's really a symbiotic relationship, the retail RD and a nutrition navigation program. They work best together. And, we in the store I work in, for example, I'm happy that we have tags that we hang or signs that say like RD top pick, or, we have other tags that might say like, we hang signs that say boost your mood or happy heart. And I'm grateful that we are able to communicate our messages this way as retail dietitians. But it's very different than a nutrition navigation program also being there that is, as I mentioned in a previous slide, based on cutoff points. We are very careful not to hang signs as dietitians that say high fiber or heart healthy unless we're going to define that. And I think that's like one of the big things that I'd like to take away, in thinking about the in-store experience for a retail RD working with a nutrition navigation program, is that it gives an opportunity to lean on a communication tool within your store that has been, like, for lack of a better phrase right now, like almost like pre-screened, right? Those, that tool is there to back you up and to you can lean on it, and that it's backed by sound science, and that it has cutoff points for you, so that it's not just doesn't seem subjective. And I think that means a lot to a consumer when they know that it's based on specific cutoff points like that. Of course, we aren't just offering in-store information anymore. And I think the e-commerce view is not only big right now, but it's only going to grow as the retailers that we work with increase their own e-commerce, platforms and things like that. And one of the biggest things here is that we're so used to messaging to consumers to turn the package around. And of course, read the label, turn the package. That's been our message for so long. And of course, with e-commerce, we have to modify this and help consumers develop different habits. And there's been some data over the last year that talks about how more consumers are shifting to online shopping. Label reading is on the decline, and not just because consumers aren't used to reading the nutrition facts panel online, but it's because it's not always readily available when consumers are searching for products and curating their shopping list. And so this is a space that we, our retail RDs, really need to pay attention to. And of course, when a nutrition navigation program is already in place within your store, it's easy to kind of see how those can move beyond just in-store tags and move to a digital format, so that when a list is being curated or something, there's a symbol right next to those foods as they're curating a list. That program has read the nutrition label for them and is making sure that their fictional cart, or their digital cart, if you will, is still complete with the most nutritious foods. And then, of course, since recipes and meal kits and prepared foods and more can be evaluated also, retailers can highlight these options while also encouraging consumers to make healthier choices for their entire household. So there's a lot of opportunities here, and it's certainly something that Kit and I can answer more questions on. We are not going anywhere. We're sticking around. We're going to be here for the Q&A. But at this point, I'd like to introduce Julie Greene, the director of Guiding Stars.
Thanks so much to both Kit and Allie, who are both really valued members of our Guiding Stars team, whether it's crafting a new part of our algorithm or explaining and introducing the concepts to consumers. It's really important to have the experts help steer the ship. So what I will do is give you the example of Guiding Stars as a nutrition guidance program. Kit and Allie did a great job of explaining the value of these programs and what they can do in particular for retail dietitians. And I can give you a little bit of the history of Guiding Stars, and really what I'd like to focus on is what Guiding Stars can do beyond consumer information. There's a lot more that the data can do for a food retailer, for consumers, for the food industry, and overall for public health. So I'll go over Guiding Stars, how it works, share a video if the tech cooperates with me, show you a little bit more about the science behind the stars that Kit introduced a couple of minutes ago, and then really talk about the business impact of Guiding Stars. So what I'll do is, this is a little bit about why Guiding Stars was created. And you see shoppers in front of the familiar wall of thousands of products. And whether that's an actual wall, a wall of cereal or crackers in a bricks and mortar location, or whether it's a virtual wall of products, there are tens of thousands of products in any retail store. And really now, with the advent of what's being called endless aisles, there is an infinite, just no end to the number of products that consumers can consider. So how can you narrow it down? We know there are a growing number of consumers that are managing conditions, but the vast majority of shoppers are looking to just eat a little bit better. So how can you help narrow those choices to those that have more positive attributes per calorie and just nudge them towards the better choices? So as Kit and Allie explained, this program was introduced by Hannaford Supermarkets in 2006. Since that time, it has expanded and is now being offered across the Ahold Delhaize network, but it's also being licensed beyond the ADUSA family of brands. And so if your organization is interested in it, we'd be very interested in having Guiding Stars expand further and help more and more shoppers. The more we all have consistent messaging and consistent marketing to reach out to shoppers, the more effective we'll all be in lifting all boats to help shoppers make better, more informed choices. So what I'll do, let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to share with you a new video that helps explain Guiding Stars. So bear with me as I do this. Allie, we can go on to the next slide. Thank you. So that was just a very fast overview of how Guiding Stars works. And some of the big factors to remember, some things that distinguish Guiding Stars from perhaps other programs, is that we use data that's accessible to consumers. So anything printed on a nutrition facts panel, and plus the ingredients listed, and any on-pack claims. And then we make sure that our formulas are transparent. I put in the chat guidingstars.com. If you're interested, you can download our white paper for a really deeper dive into the algorithms and how they were constructed and where the cut points are and upon what recommendations they were based. And then you can see also the positive messaging. We don't get into, there's no skull and crossbones, there's no red light or even a yellow light. It's good, better, best. Guiding Stars helps narrow your choices by identifying products that meet the standard for earning a star, and then to what degree it meets that standard. And it really helps distinguish between products that meet that standard and those that really are a top-notch, most nutritious product. So one thing that we have found has been really interesting about Guiding Stars, when you set a nutritional floor, you can say, in order to participate in a food donation program, a product has to earn a star. And so organizations that use Guiding Stars will say, we're only going to donate foods that earn stars to a food bank or for a special set of products. And so if you have macaroni and cheese, for example, if you have an entry point for that particular product to earn a star, the manufacturer can reformulate to that standard. If the standard is so high that you have to become an apple in order to be highlighted in the program, then that manufacturer has less of an incentive to reformulate, to lower sodium, to add fiber, to lower saturated fat, and encourage consumption of produce with those products. So by having an entry point at that good level, we have found that manufacturers are reformulating and really getting their toe on a rung. And when you're donating food to through a food bank, that's becoming increasingly important to our community partners. So let's continue on to the next slide. Again, as noted before, it's really important that we look at the science behind our cut points. And our advisory panel here, you can see some of the folks, including Kit, listed here, and her colleagues on our panel. They really help Guiding Stars translate the regulations, the evidence-based science, to help us really rigorously determine what products should meet the standard. So we can talk about the standards and then really debate the reality of that. We can talk about the concept of the philosophy of eating more nutritious foods. But until you pass the data through the algorithms and you identify how the math comes out, you won't be able to know how your philosophy is impacting a shopper when they're standing in front of a product in the aisle. So Guiding Stars really has a pragmatic solution to identifying products that meet a standard. So it's not just an academic concept. It really has been executed in the marketplace. And we have 15 years of evaluating it and tweaking it. You know, our algorithms are never done. We're always looking at what's the latest science and how can we incorporate that into how we're helping shoppers make decisions. Let's go on to that next slide. So we have 5 algorithms, and Kit mentioned that we just introduced a beverage algorithm. All of them, except for beverage, are based on a 100-calorie reference measure. Now, we know that there are some other programs that might use weight as that standard measure. We have found that 100 calories can enable side-by-side comparison between similar products, which is a really common use and one of the best uses of Guiding Stars. And then adjust for those serving size variations of that same product, so that it also eliminates that water weight difference as well. And then what we've done for beverage, we really took a deep dive with beverage and took 2 years to make sure that we had our beverage algorithm right. But we used a 12-ounce reference measure for those products so that we were able to evaluate products with no calories, which is really important in the beverage category. So we're now able to evaluate water, seltzer, unsweetened tea. We're able to evaluate all of these products, including those with calories, and give more help to consumers in a category that we know has a direct impact on consumer health outcomes. So we're really excited about this new solution and know that it will help shoppers and retailers make more informed decisions. So let's go on to the next slide, please. Where to find Guiding Stars icons. So you can see here there's a shelf tag up in the top left corner. And you can see there are a couple of different configurations. We know that the reality, when you put these concepts in practice, there's a lot that needs to be communicated on a unit price tag in a supermarket. There are regulations for how large the pricing has to be. There's unit pricing that's required. WIC is often communicated, is required to be communicated on this shelf tag. So there's a lot that needs to be included in a very, very small space. So in order to accommodate Guiding Stars icons that have just been updated this past year, we have our apple with the stars on them, and then we've indicated within this icon how many of 3 stars are earned by this product. So you can find Guiding Stars icons on that shelf tag on an e-commerce platform. You can see Guiding Stars. You can see the outline stars in that icon on the e-commerce platform there. In the weekly circular, you're starting to see more Guiding Stars, which is really exciting because you can see the pairing up of great pricing, of a retailer's best pricing, with products that meet this standard. And not only is it in the ad, but these often correlate with what you see on display in stores as well. So that we know that moves product. We know that's where shoppers often get their impression of a food retailer. So to the extent which we can impact what's on display in a store or on a digital display, we are finding more and more uses for Guiding Stars in the digital arena. Recipes and retailer magazines are another place that you can find Guiding Stars in heavy use. Some of the retail magazines do issues exclusively with recipes that earn Guiding Stars. If they're doing an issue during a particular time of the year, or even if they're doing recipes for, say, the Super Bowl, how might we have, half of the recipes earning a star so that we give equal footing to indulgent recipes that we do to recipes that meet the standard. So you can also find Guiding Stars on private brand packaging for the retail brands that offer it. You can see here Hannaford has this woven wheat, and it's you can find it on the packaging for products that earn the star. And then Food Finder, I included in the chat our Food Finder app. You can look it up online. It's food.guidingstars.com. And that's a really interesting place to explore the scores of each product, find out which algorithm was used and where it earned and lost points. There's a comparison tool that allows you to compare, I think, up to 4 products at a time. It's a really fun tool. And when you're in a store, you can use the scan feature to scan a product, or when you're in your own pantry, you can scan a product and see how that item scores, or even just type in the UPC or the product name. So it's I would encourage you to explore that, find products that are familiar to you, find products that are new to you. Send us your questions because it's really a fun way to explore guiding stars and understand why a product would earn or not earn a star, or 2 or 3. So this shows guiding stars old design and new design. The original design had the blue runner, who we fondly referred to as Gus, and then you can see a couple of different versions of the new iconography. And really, guiding stars, some of the benefits of guiding stars is that, consumers have really liked the positive, simple guidance. We also know that manufacturers have responded very positively to the program as well. They're not fighting it because it's a positive only message. If it doesn't earn a star, there's no negative message being communicated about it. So let's see. The data is up to date. We're constantly, since this seminar started, we've probably evaluated a couple of 100 products. So we're always constantly updating it with new information, with updated data, with new products. Transparency is appreciated by health professionals, consumers themselves, and manufacturers. They want to know if their products are being evaluated, with what criteria are they being evaluated? And having that transparency enables a better understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. It's consistent across the store. That we do the hard stuff in the background. The messy stuff happens behind the scenes so that it's very simple and straightforward. Consumers see 1, 2, and 3 stars, good, better, and best, and off they go. They don't have to agonize about which formula was used or anything behind the scenes. So it's clean up front. And it really pairs well with other types of labeling and guidance programs. So if you are shopping with someone who needs to eat gluten-free for whatever collection of reasons that might be the case, you're not only going to be looking for gluten-free cookies, it's even more important, this group knows better than anyone else, it's even more important when you're managing a condition like celiac, or if you have a food intolerance, to make sure you're getting the most nutrition for your calories. So not only would you seek out a gluten-free section or products labeled as meeting gluten-free standards, but you'll want to layer on top of that, okay, I'm going to look for gluten-free products that meet a standard for nutritional quality. So we really like guiding stars in tandem with other types of guidance. Let's go on to the next slide. So this is what I'm really excited to talk with this group about, is just guiding stars beyond the shelf. Whether that's a digital shelf or an actual physical shelf, we know that guiding stars can do much more than just motivate consumers. It can also motivate food retailers. We know that retailers they curate an assortment of products for consumers. How can we, with the expertise that the retail dietitians bring to the table, and with a tool like Guiding Stars, how can we encourage a food retailer to offer more nutritious choices at great pricing? We know that all consumers are concerned about pricing now more than ever, and consumers are concerned about nutrition now more than ever as well, as we emerge from this pandemic. And so what Guiding Stars can enable is nutrition goal and target setting. So we know that environmental, social, and governance is increasingly important to retail organizations, that investors are looking at ESG data. And so Guiding Stars enables reporting on how well a retailer does with selling products that meet a standard for nutrition. I also mentioned manufacturer reformulation before, where you have products reformulating to meet a standard. Can you encourage them to get into that territory where you'll have better for you products and then increase it from there. Donations. I also mentioned donations. If you are donating to food banks or if you're contributing to hunger relief, what types of products are you donating? No longer is any calorie a good calorie when it comes to food, to hunger relief. And we know our food banks are asking for more nutritious foods. How can you tell if a product is more nutritious? You're not going to just be donating organic products. How can you encourage donations of products that meet this standard? So Food Lion is a great example. They have a hunger relief box and they made sure that every product in that box met the standard. There are also an increasing number of programs that are being classified as food as medicine. So discount programs that are being funded by nonprofits. We know there are produce RX programs where families are being given prescriptions for healthier foods, and it translates to a coupon that can be redeemed in store. Guiding Stars is a great way to go beyond produce aisle and help shoppers find shelf-stable foods that also meet a standard. So once you leave the safe confines of produce, how can you find those items in the center store that meet that standard? And then nutrition research on shopper behaviors is both Kit and Allie quoted a lot of the research that's been done using Guiding Stars. So we love to partner with academic researchers because this data is so rich, and paired with sales data, you can really understand what consumers are buying, what's meaningful to them, how to layer on things like incentives. Giant Foods is doing a really interesting incentive where they're doing double the loyalty points for products earning stars. We've seen employer incentives too, where all staff of a company offering Guiding Stars gets a 10% discount on anything that earns stars. So there's an infinite way to use Guiding Stars beyond that shelf, and that's what we're really interested in. You probably have ideas on how the data could be used in your retailer as well. So we are open to partnerships with you, and what I'll do right now is look at some of the questions that have come in and see if we can start to answer some of these. So
Julie, there was
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say there's a question, and there's a couple questions that deal with Canadian Guiding Stars. Did you want to address that?
Yes, I'm happy to. So we partnered with Loblaw for a number of years. In 2019, they changed direction, and they leaned heavily into a retail dietitian program, and we're exploring other solutions beyond Guiding Stars. So they're a fantastic operator, and we're a great partner, but they had sunset that program a couple of years ago. So let's see. Yes, the food is medicine. Leslie made a comment about how exciting the potential is for Guiding Stars to support the food as medicine programs.
Julie, a little ways back, there's a question how a shopper knows if a category of food has not been evaluated for stars, or if it, or versus a category that has no good, better, or best choices.
So you'll find, so there are some categories that have more products that earn stars than others. So bakery is an obvious one, although it's an important category because of our daily bread. And certainly Guiding Stars can really help differentiate the products that have whole grains and a standard for fiber. So it's a really great place to say, yes, here's some indulgent products, get a birthday cake for your kid. But if you're looking for an everyday bread for sandwiches and toast, look for products with stars. For every category, every edible category across the entire store has been evaluated. National brand or A brand products have all been evaluated at no cost to the manufacturer. Private brand products are evaluated. It's a service that the retailer provides for the entire store. And that's something that was really important to Guiding Stars and continues to be so. And so we, you can't buy a star, you have to earn a star with the nutrition facts information and ingredients. And, so it continues to be a rigorous program, but there are ways to enter. And, we encourage shoppers to explore, well, why doesn't this product earn a star? Look it up online. Odds are it's been evaluated. It's not that we haven't gotten to it yet, but it just doesn't earn a star. As Kit pointed out, only about 1/3 of the products in the store earn a star. And we often have a conversation about, we could be more rigorous and say only 3-star items deserve any sort of a star. And there's a strong argument that can be made for only those products should earn any type of an indicator. However, if you're going to encourage product reformulation, you have to have an area. We feel it's important to have an entry point for those products that are on the edge. How can you encourage manufacturers to get over that brink so that the scales tip towards more positives than those factors to limit in our diets?
There's also things like baby formula, alcohol, supplements. Those aren't evaluated. Medical beverages, something you might consider to be a medical beverage. So there are certain things that aren't evaluated, but by and large, every other thing is. So, including beverages now, which a lot of people were looking for guidance on. Any other questions?
That was
just so you know, you can get further. Yeah, you can get further information on the website, of course. And if you want to reach out to any of us in particular, I think you can reach us fairly easily through the website as well. All right, I guess we're done. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And have a great rest of your conference.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Really appreciate your interest in our program. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.